this.
Recording in progress. We got it. Okay. So we're up to Hilchos Rechilas Klal Tes Sif Yud Daled. In Nasa Davar Reuven Shloi Kahoygen. Something wrong was done to Reuven. Achloi Noda Laimi also as a Davar. He knows it was done. He doesn't know who did it to him. Ubar Reuven Zeh. So Reuven's trying to find out who dented his car, let's say. Vishal Shimon, and he asked Shimon, "Mi also who did this?" So Avshu Maven Reuven Choisher, but even though he understands that Reuven, that wasn't an innocent question, but Reuven suspects it was him, I guess giving him the opportunity to cough it up. Also, the God so Shema Oysa. Now he didn't do it, right? He's not allowed to tell Reuven who did it, even if it means that Reuven is gonna suspect him of being the guilty person. And I'm sure Robatzma, even if he saw it himself, he knows exactly who did it. Rak Yoshavlai, his response has to be, Ani lo yisisi es hadavar zeh. Not me. I didn't do it. And in the Haggadah, the bottom it says, Ach yesh li zohar, you do need to be careful. So the horis kulam mizeh hadin, nidin im hoyo hu gam ken min haminuyim. You can't use this as a leniency. If you're one of the minuyim kegon, for example, he says, if you binyan tova here. In the old days, they had a committee that ran the city. There's this Shiva Tuve years, the 7 elected, I guess, people who made all the decisions. That right, they would, I guess, sit whenever they sat and they would discuss the different situations in the city. Right, and many times they go for a vote. Right, they make decisions, but it's based on the majority. 4 against 3, 5 against 2, whatever it is. And let's say he was from those who disagreed with this decision. If he died to neged Ruvain. And as far as he's concerned, their decision against Ruvain, in this case, was wrong. But they were the majority, Bitlu Daitai. Ruvain comes and asks him, what happened there? Why did you vote against me? Were you on their side? Even though Reuven is obviously suspecting him that he was against his side, or Pikain, also Lord Minatin Lahoshev, he's not allowed to respond. I feel Beloshan, and in this case, he can't even say, not me. Certainly, he can't tell Reuven who it was. I guess if he says it's not me, then Reuven, in other words,
it's a process of elimination.
Right. So in such you can't use, even though here the Chavetz Chaim is saying that when in the normal case, something happened to Reuven turns to Shimon and says, did you do this? And or he says, who did this? And even though he understands that Reuven suspects him, the answer is not me. But in that case, you can't use that as a heter in a case where not me is actually pointing a finger at somebody else. Ukimoy. 1 minute. Back on top. In parentheses, again, unless it's a situation that even if Reuven wouldn't ask him, and Reuven doesn't suspect. It would be his obligation to tell Reuven. For example, where all the conditions at the beginning of the simon are fulfilled, and it's a tayelis to tell Reuven so that Reuven can, whether protect himself on the future, get back his money, right? In that case, he's writing in parentheses, and then of course Shimon has to tell him. He's going to have to tell him whether Reuven asks or not. Question is, but in other cases, question is that you can't say everything that was written above in Hilchos Lashon Hara, in this case, apply here too. We're going to explain what many people stumble in. I'll give you an example. And based on that, a wise person will be able to apply it to other similar cases. The female shemotzi. What is a common situation? Someone brings some merchandise to be sold in the city, and many buyers come, right? And they check out the merchandise, and I guess they handle, they bargain. So what's very common in these situations that if you don't have money on hand, you don't walk around with your money. So what do you do is you choose what you'd like to buy. And then you ask the seller, please don't sell it to anyone else. You put it aside. I'm going to bring you the money. But in the meantime, other buyers come and they pressure the guy to sell it to them. When it starts to him and under pressure, okay, I'm sure he he figures I'll get the money now. He sells it to them. Now the first guy comes after it's gone and he asks him, okay, I brought the money. Could you give me what I chose? Umeshiva now, I guess he doesn't want to say, well, I decided to sell it to someone else and look like a bad guy. So he says, Pliny. So he tells him, listen, Shimon came by. Laisi writes it, so I didn't want to sell it to him. So he put the money on the counter of a and he took it against my will. So I had no choice. Right? He's taking it without asking me, and he's throwing the money. So he writes to this guy to him, I don't want to get into a fight with him and pull it back, get physical. Going to Avalav Gomedoyo, Yela Selach Rochmamach. It says this storekeeper has been over on the Easter of Loiselach Rochel, Ba'amecha. Hagam Sha'avlak Dola also Isoi, Shehir Salos Leisaschar Shabarishan, even though that second guy was wrong. He did a wrongdoing by pressuring him to sell. If he's telling him, I already agreed to sell it to someone else, that's wrong. Still, if you keep on Moismito, since when push comes to shove, he did sell it to him and he took the money. So it's a binding sale. Now there's no benefit. There's no benefit that he should tell the first guy, Ruvain, who was the person who pressured him into the sale. There's nothing to be gained because Ruvain didn't actually buy it, and Shimon did. All it's going to do is going to cause a fight between Ruvain and Shimon. And that's outright Rechias Kanal B'Kol Al Sif Gimel V'Zadin Doim Rechol Pratav L'Sif Yudalet Hana. When we call Shkin, it's certainly if Yimashamotzi come upon, it says what's common. So Hivtzaboy Hashem is a Kolkach. The second guy really didn't even pressure himself. And he didn't. The seller didn't even tell Shimon that he already, closed the deal with Reuven. He didn't. And Shimon's not pressuring him. Just for his own benefit, right? He wants to finish the deal and get out of here. So he sold it to the second guy. For whatever reason, but now he doesn't look bad in the eyes of the first guy, Reuven. That Reuven's going to say you're not an honest person, you don't keep your word. Who made so say he wants to put the blame on someone else, and blame Shimon that Shimon forced him to do it. He had no choice when it's not even true. That's certainly a great avera. Kubakal Mitzi Shemra. Because now he's not only Rechilos, but it's Mitzi Shemra. The Shaykh by Kola Lavan Resan and Mavarim the Elba Psicha. And all the Lavan and Essen that we listed off in the Psicha would apply here. Because it says the Chavetz Chaim, one needs to be very careful in such a situation. So not to tell Ruvain who that buyer was. even if the Meicher wants to take the blame. The Lord is going to say, I made a mistake. It was my fault. Shimon didn't know. I didn't tell Shimon. And in such a case, when he's willing to take the blame and say that Shimon didn't know that you had chosen these goods. He says, because it's still common, it's normal. So if your boyfriend say, even in such a case, Reuben's going to be angry at you. Even if the storekeeper takes the blame and says, Shimon didn't even know that you chose the things, but I decided I didn't want to wait for the money, whatever, I sold it to Shimon. Says it's human nature that Shimon's going to be angry, Reuben's going to be angry at Shimon. And if so, even in such a case, he's not allowed to tell Reuben who that buyer was. Because Reuben's gonna consider Shimon someone who's, stepping on his toes, causing him to lose his parnos. Yoshua Amarcha Stam, the Marcha just has to respond. Ani Machatir B'Shkol Gelacher made a mistake and I sold it to someone else. No other information given. V'da'alecha, v'da, you should know the Chomash Kavsan would say for Zemin Goyla Sirus, Avoin Lo Shahora. He says all this that we've written in this sefer about being so careful from the Aver of Lo Shahaynu Lemishu Adayin Rechala Misach. Says Chavetz Chaim, it's only about someone who is still in the categories, categorized as Amisecha, which is Misha Imcha B'Torah. For those people who deny Torah Hashem, a few rakways even if they deny even one word. Or those, even if they accept the Chumash, but they mock the words of Chazal. Mitzvah fasim daitim u'kazevas. There, it's a mitzvah to publicize their opinions. Le'eni hakol, in front of everybody, u'ganoisam, and to degrade them. They shall yumadu mimasem arayim, so no one should learn from their actions. Tamu haklolim mehuchasi shel lashon hara achilas. We've completed the klolim of the halachas of each other. There is a little more here because he had said that at the end of the sefer he will give a few more examples. So that will carry on in Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow. Tomorrow, yeah. Tuesday might be a suffix, but tomorrow is most probably a suffix. But tomorrow we should be able to learn, I think. Okay, and now let's do some Shmiras haLashon. We're up to Perik Yud Gimel, Sharak Tuna Perik Yud Gimel. Shevat. Dalit Shvat. What's that? You have it? Yesh. Yesh.
Yes. Yes.
There are those who they're accustomed to speak Lashon Hara out of anger. He's a person whose nature is that he has an angry nature. And he's easily ticked off. And he gets angry at everything. Now, when you're angry, it's like you're drunk, you're out of control. You say things you shouldn't say, you do things you shouldn't do, you're out of control. Kas is, you lost it. That's the way it is when you're and he says whatever comes to his mind. Said such a person, we have no advice how he could not speak Lashon Hara. He can't protect himself because he's not in control. Just because when the anger's in control, he lost it. If he lost it, then you can't talk to him, and you get nothing to say. There's no answer. His only possibility is to uproot the midah, so he doesn't get angry. But at the point of anger, he's like a sheikh. He's an onus almost. He's not an onus because he should have worked on his anger. But at the point of anger, he's not in control. So there's no etza for him not to speak Lashon Hara. It says if anybody has any brains, he He has to run away from this midah, the midah of kas, like fleeing from fire. He should know based on this bad midah, at the end of time, he's going to be held responsible. Someone who has more averis than mitzvahs is called a Rosh. Status is a Rosh. Ramu Chazal. And the Gemara in the Durham says, Kol HaKoyis, anyone who gets angry, then it's like a sign that he has more averis than mitzvah. Shenemar uval chema, someone who's a val chema, a kasan, rav pesha. He has much sins. This that the Navi Shlomo Melech writes that as pesha, which is a rebellious avera. Do merit the Gemara Yosef amazed that it's called rebellious. First time amazed. Basically, do an avera on purpose, but it might be because you have a Baal Taiva. You know, the food was so good that you couldn't say no to it, even though it's treif. Okay, but you're not doing it as rebellious. But there's someone who has that opportunity to eat kosher food, the same kosher food. But because he's defiant of Hashem and mitzvahs, he doesn't care, that's called a pesha. So he says the reason why the Navi says here, pesha, Rav Pesha, Mishum de Be'ez HaKas, is because at the time of the anger, Hufkar, the Gami Etzel HaTorah mitzvahs. All of Torah and mitzvahs, it's Hefker. Because again, he's not rational. So whatever his kas is going to take him to, that's what he's going to do. People break things in anger. What are you breaking? What are you doing? Right? It's because you're not rational. Chazal, as Chazal taught us, Kol HaKoyis, anyone who gets angry, I feel Shechina Eina Chashuva Kned. Even the Shechina is not important. Remember what I was saying, Chazal taught us, Kol HaMakor B'Godel B'Chamoseh, someone who tears his clothing out of anger, V'Mashaber Kelev B'Chamoseh, and breaks his property out of anger, V'Mafaza Ma'oisa B'Chamoseh, and someone who throws out his money out of anger, you should view him as an Oived Avodah Zarah. Mikra, what is it based on? Lo Yevcha El Zor. You should not have a foreign god of Avodah Zarah. Ezu El Zor Shu B'Gufa Shalom. It says Lo Yevcha. The Torah chooses to say it shouldn't be in you, within you. Yeah. So what El Zor do you have in your body? That's the Yetzer Hara of Kas that is considered that you're Kilo Oived Avodah Zarah. Okay.